This is the Begin Within podcast, where we believe real, lasting health and fitness requires you to start inside before you work out. I'm your host, Nate Slegger, and I'm here to show you behind the scenes of fitness. You already know exercise is good for you, but what about all the other things in life that affect your fitness? If you're looking for extra motivation to get started or to make sure you keep going, this is the place for you.
Produced by BeginWithin.fit.
My guest today is Stephen Box. He is the host of the Unshakable Habits Podcast, which you can go over and give a listen to in your podcast player. Check out his show. I know that you're going to benefit from it. And I hope that you benefit greatly from his interview here with me today. We are going to talk about some of the things that he has found in his own experience and as he's worked with clients that help so much in developing healthy habits, which we know is the very reason that we're here. We know that good health, consistent health is all about habits. So we're going to talk about some of those big principles today with Stephen Box. In particular, we're going to talk about, as he tells his story, his own success story, the all or nothing mentality and the danger of it. We have addressed that before here on the show, but this one is really going to resonate for you. I know it deeply affected me. It was a very valuable piece of the conversation, and I benefited a lot from his perspective on it. He's also going to talk about the dial mindset. Dial mindset. When he talks about that, I want you to tune in, pay really close attention, because I found it to be a super valuable model to use when looking at how we're doing in the pursuit of health improvement. And then finally, you might want to grab a pen and paper or your notes app on your device as you're listening, if you're able to, because he's going to walk us through a crash course on how to create a vision that's going to support you in your pursuit of better health. Please enjoy my interview with Stephen Box.
There's levels to this, right? There's when I realized I need to make some changes, and there's the years of failure, and then there's the success portion of the story.
Yeah.
And I think for me, a lot of it really started with just kind of this general unhappiness with my life. On the outside, I seemed like I had it all. I had a pretty decent paying job. We were always traveling, going to like football games, things like that. I had a beautiful wife. To the outside world, I had every checkbox that we're told as men we're supposed to have, you know?
Mm.
And despite it, I just wasn't happy. And I think a big part of that was there was a miscommunication between who I was and my daily activities and behaviors and my identity. I'm 45 years old, so I'm Gen X. I grew up in the generation that was always outside playing, always doing something active. And so that was a huge part of my identity. And as I got into high school, college, started working, my activity level went down. My diet probably got worse. And now you start adding things like stress to the equation, not sleeping as well, especially because I was working retail management. And so if anyone has ever worked retail management, you know the hours are literally all over the place. Like there is no such thing as a set schedule.
Yeah.
A lot of times you're eating in food courts. So I really kind of had that experience. And over time, I put on weight. And I think like a lot of guys, I had this idea in my head of, well, I just need to lose like 10, 15 pounds. It'll be fine. And then before you know it, you need to lose 25, 30 pounds, right? And I would, go on diets, or I would try like, extreme exercise type things, but I would never stick with them because hated them. They made me miserable. I like to eat. So even today, I still like to eat. And so I really didn't stick with them very long. And when I say I tried everything, I mean, I literally tried everything, right? Low carb, high protein, low fat. I worked with a dietitian for a while. I even went to the doctor at one point and they put me on appetite suppressant pills.
Mm,
That didn't even last a week. I was like, I'm not doing this.
okay.
And I want to say that there really wasn't truly a single event that pushed me over the edge. I think it was this culmination of things,
Okay.
right? It was not feeling like I was in alignment with who I wanted to be. I really wasn't active the way I wanted to be. And when I tried to be active, I would get winded. I'd end up hurting for like days, if not weeks afterwards. I got tired of my knees hurting, my back hurting, not even being able to go upstairs. I would look at pictures of myself and just not be happy. So a lot of times in pictures, I would like try to hide myself or I would try to crop the picture a certain way to like hide myself. Or if it was a group photo, I'd always make sure to get behind people. And it was like these little moments where the pain was there, but it wasn't enough to do anything about it. And,
Okay.
and I think that's something a lot of guys can probably relate to is, we see it, but it's just other things seem more important right now.
Sure.
And the moment that I think really pushed me over the edge, by itself, it probably wouldn't have made a difference, but it was just kind of the culmination of everything, was I was working in retail management, like I said, and my store had video cameras. And one of my responsibilities as the manager was every Monday, I was to go back and watch the security footage from the previous week, just to make sure people are doing what they're supposed to do, make sure we didn't have any theft, things like that. And I had forgotten that I came in the store on Saturday when I was off, and it was a rare Saturday off. So I forgot I'd stopped by the store. And so I'm watching the footage from the weekend, and I see myself come into the store, walk behind our counter and do something on the register and walk out. But here is the catch, Nate. I didn't recognize it was me.
Oh, wow.
I literally pulled my phone out of my pocket. It was about to call my assistant manager and literally cuss him out for allowing some stranger behind our counter messing around with our cash register. But that was the first time, even though I saw pictures of myself and things like that, that was the first time I think seeing like the real life version, right? Like seeing me in movement,
Yeah.
that I really got that full like 360-degree perspective of what I look like to other people. And it was just like, I can't believe I've let myself get this far. Now, I would love to tell you guys that that was the point where everything changed and I went out and I started training like a Rocky montage and the weight just fell off and life was wonderful. But that's not what happened. Okay.
Okay.
So I think a lot of times that's what people expect. They expect the light bulb moment to go off, and then all of a sudden this immense surge of willpower comes in and we get
Yeah.
fantastic results right away.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened?
So I
Yeah.
signed up. I went to a local big box gym and I signed up with a personal trainer. And you probably know this, but personal trainers at big box gyms do not get paid a lot of money. And as a result, a lot of them leave. And so between people leaving and a couple people I just didn't mesh well with, I went through 6 different trainers.
Oh my. Okay.
And I got to a point where honestly, like I was just fed up with it. I was like, you know what? I'll just stay fat. Right? It's just like it's not even worth it. I've tried the dietitian, I've tried the pills, I've tried diets, I've tried the cardio, I've tried working with a trainer, and none of it's worked for me.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna give up.
Makes
And so
sense.
for a couple of months, I did nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then one day, I was like, you know what? I'm wasting money here. I might as well just go up here to the gym and cancel my stuff.
Hmm.
They told me that I had accumulated 72 half-hour personal training sessions, and that if I did not use them, I was going to just lose the money. And if I canceled my membership, I wasn't going to get the money back. So I was
Sure.
stuck. So now I'm paying for a gym membership, which was like $30 a month. And I'm still accumulating personal training sessions as we're going. So I was like, you know what? Give me 2 trainers. I'm going to knock them out back to back, do 1-hour sessions, and I'm going to get through these as fast as I can. And it wasn't even about getting into shape anymore. It was just about not wasting the money.
Sure.
Now, yes, in hindsight, I can see that if just working out for the sake of just using the sessions and not getting results would have also been a waste of money. But fortunately for me, I ended up getting a trainer. His name was Rob. And Rob was like this really serious guy. He's a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
So like super serious guy, like super buff. And he just, at least when we first met, had zero personality, just as dry as could be. And one day, somebody goes, walks by a guy that he knows, and he actually made a joke. And Nate, I don't know what made this come out of my mouth, but I literally looked at him and I went, "Oh, so you do have a personality." I mean, it seems incredibly stupid in hindsight, but for whatever reason, like he laughed and we ended up becoming really good friends. And over the course of working with him, he really started to tell me, like, not just what we were doing, but explaining the whys to me and really helping me develop this passion for health and fitness, which would eventually end up leading to me getting into coaching myself.
Yeah.
But what happened was, as we started doing this, I started going, you know what? I can do this. But I had a caveat, I had a rule because I figured, I mean, stubbornness had got me this far. Why stop now? Right. So I made a decision. I knew I had to change my nutrition too to start seeing results. But I wanted to prove that you could do it without giving up your favorite foods. Because
Okay.
at that time, there was none of this flexible dieting and all this stuff that we have now.
Mhm.
Everything back then was you need to eat like boiled chicken and broccoli.
Mhm.
And I mean, who wants to do that, honestly? I like tacos. So when I made this decision, I was like, I'm not giving up my favorite foods. I'm going to prove that this can be done without doing those things. Now, I mean, I knew I had to make some changes. I knew I had to make better choices and I had to do more home cooked meals and things like that.
Mhm.
But I ended up losing my first 40 pounds while still eating fast food every single day. I was
Nice.
just making smarter decisions at the fast food restaurant. I
Nice.
was training, I was getting stronger, and the confidence really kind of kept me going. And Nate, I'm gonna read your mind here a little bit.
Okay.
So one of the
Shoot.
questions I get asked a lot is, how long did it take and what kept you motivated? Because it took me 10 months, right? And 10 months
Okay.
is a long time to stay motivated to doing anything.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the funny story here is, in the midst of all of this going on, I actually went to San Francisco for a 49ers game. I'm a huge 49ers fan. This was
Okay.
my first time going out there. And so I go into the team store and I see this shirt that I really liked. It was a long sleeve shirt. And I got it off the rack, tried it on. It was like a double extra large. And something happened. I don't even remember how this occurred, but somehow I ended up putting it back on the rack and then grabbing it again. Maybe I just like debated if I wanted it or not or whatever. But when I got the new one, I accidentally grabbed a medium. And I didn't realize this
Mhm.
until I got back home in Atlanta.
Okay.
And so when I get back home, I'm like, I can't fit this shirt. It's like busting at the seams, me just trying to get it on. But what I did is I decided that day that I was not going to stop until I could wear that shirt.
Mm.
And literally every like month or two, I would put that shirt on and I would gauge like, is it less tight than it was before? And to the point where I actually lost so much weight that the shirt was big on me. I ended up having to put it in the dryer and shrink it down a little bit to make it fit. So
So was
that's
that kind of that little assessment of progress that kept you rolling, kept you motivated?
yeah, I think it was. It was, there were other things like when I first started, I couldn't even do push-ups. Rob always loved to start workouts out with push-ups. And it was only 10, but when I first started, man, it'd probably take me 10 minutes to do 10 push-ups.
Sure.
And then afterwards, I'm like, we can only do lower body for the next 20 minutes. Which is, I don't have any upper body strength left. And so, that progress of things like that, be able to go from one push-up to 2 to 3 to 4. and to be able to do 10 push-ups like they were nothing and not even be tired afterwards.
Yeah.
Like, there was progress like that also.
Nice.
But yeah, that shirt was my measuring stick, man. Like, that's I didn't do tape measures, I didn't step on the scale, I didn't look at really any of that stuff as measurements. I mean, I would do those things just to see the numbers,
Hmm.
but for me, that T-shirt was the ultimate measuring tool.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing your story. I really appreciate that. I'm captivated. And I have a question.
Yeah.
Do you think, because I raised my hand when you were in retail management. I'm curious if, how, how many of us are there out there who went from retail management into health and fitness coaching?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a connection.
Maybe we need to start like a club or something, like an organization for ourselves.
Well, like that's where I always start my story too. I'm like, well, let me tell you, I was in HR for a retail company, and yeah. So now you're helping others, and I know that you are applying a lot of things you learned along your journey. What are some of the biggest things that you find that you're helping your clients with in terms of maybe misconceptions that they're coming in with, and as you're coaching them, you notice that these misconceptions, the thinking is changing in these areas. What are some of those big ones?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, especially for a lot of us guys, if you look at the way that we're taught growing up, the expectations the society's put on us, we're taught you're supposed to go, 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 right? It's that hustle mentality. We're
Mm,
always supposed to be working. How hard you work is a measure of who you are as a man. I remember, being told so much about how important having a great work ethic was growing up and things like that. And so for a lot of guys, this manifests as an all or nothing mentality.
mm,
And it's so easy to apply this to everything. This all or nothing mentality makes us feel like we have to just do everything at once. And this is something I realized recently is in terms of why we have that outside of our social upbringing and things like that is when you look at why we want things to happen fast. Because everybody wants to lose weight like yesterday, right?
mm.
And what I started realizing was nobody actually wants to lose weight quickly. What they want is for their knees to stop hurting.
Mm.
They want their back to stop hurting. They want to be able to play with their kids without getting winded. Or they want to be able to come home from a long day or at the end of a long week and have the energy to spend with their family instead of crashing on the couch,
Mhm.
right? That's what they want. What they've been told is that losing weight and being skinny is going to get them there. And so it makes sense that I want to get that result as fast as I can if that result is what's going to get me what I want. And I
Gotcha.
feel like the fastest way for me to get that result is to go all in.
Yeah.
So that was the connection I started to make.
Yeah.
And once I started to have that connection, the shift I started helping my clients have was that you don't need to have a certain size waistline or certain number on a scale to have those things. It's like I started finding happiness that my shirt fit me a little bit better or that I could do 2 push-ups. I didn't have to wait until I could do 100 push-ups to find happiness. I didn't have to wait until the shirt fit me really well to find happiness. And it never clicked to me that I had that experience. Like, I
Mm.
went through it, it was what it was, but it didn't really click to me until, I was a good ways into my coaching career. And so once I had that realization, that's when I started helping my clients shift. This idea that you don't have to go all in. I mean, like I said, I lost my first 40 pounds eating fast food every single day.
Mhm.
You don't have to sit there and eat like nothing but diet food. Matter of fact, you don't really have to diet at all.
Well, yeah, I think as I was listening, I'm thinking about those 2 words, all or nothing. And I think even in my head, like you were talking about, we're raised with that Like all is the ideal if I'm doing it all. So, nothing. Oh, we can't do that one. But all is still the ideal. But when we can kind of let go of that and realize that all isn't healthy either,
Yeah.
it's not going to be sustainable and it's going to actually burn us out, that there's a balance. Is it somewhere in the middle, do you feel like? Or is it like doing all and nothing, varying between the two?
So to me, when you look at nothing, it's this idea that none of us aim to do nothing, but it's when we start trying to do all and we can't, that we end up doing nothing. Right. And that's why I call it an all or nothing mindset. It's not about anyone aims to do nothing. It's about the fact that we end up doing nothing because we feel like if I can't do it all, it's not worth it.
Mm.
When I look at the mindset here, one of the concepts I teach my clients is this idea of a dial. And the way that this dial mindset works is, imagine that you have a radio that never turns off.
Mm.
You can turn the volume up and down, but it never goes off. And this is how we need to look at progressing our health. So, for example, a 1 on my dial, if I'm just, well, we'll use exercise as the example here, but you can apply this to literally anything you want. But let's say, just for illustrative purposes, we're going to look at exercise. A 1 might be I wake up and do 10 push-ups. Now, is 10 push-ups going to get me results? Absolutely not. If all I ever do every day is wake up and I apply myself at a level 1, that's not going to get me anywhere. But maybe right now life is super crazy. I've got a lot going on. I just can't make time to get into the gym and work out. Those 10 push-ups keep me mentally locked in to the identity of someone who works out. So that when I do have more time, it's going to be so much easier for me to get back into my routine because I never just stopped completely.
Mm-hmm.
A 10 might be, this week I'm going to do 3 hours of strength training and I'm going to do, some flexibility type training 3-4 days a week. I'm going to do some balance training. I'm going to do some cardio a couple days, maybe like a day or two of some HIIT, right? Like that might be a 10, perfect week.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that all the time. There's going to be times where that's not feasible. But the beautiful thing is, between those two extremes, there's a lot of options. There's a lot of degrees of what we can actually do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I always tell people is, in an ideal world, you're probably going to rarely be at a 10, and you're going to probably really be at a 1. If you can
Nice.
consistently hit between a 5 and a 7, you're going to probably knock it out of the park.
Awesome. Yeah. I love it. I'm listening to the dial mindset, I was like, wait, I know where this is going. Nope, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. As you wrapped it up, I'm like, there it is. I love it. That's awesome.
You're like, I was right, but I was wrong a couple of times.
No, I'm like, oh, not there. Oh, okay, I got it. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I love that metaphor for it. And I was just reading recently, when it comes to habits, those that have a flexible attitude toward it, not this like rigid, it's got to be a workout at 7 a.m. because that's when I get my best workout in, and I mean, no one will interrupt me and everything else, versus someone who's more flexible and says like, you know what, I'm going to do what I can today when it works best. The flexibility tends to win out. So
And we
research backs the dial mindset.
Yeah. And we can even talk about what that looks like flexibility wise within a day. Is maybe my goal is to wake up at 7 a.m. and work out. And if I can't get up at 7 a.m. and work out, excuse me, what is my backup plan? Right? I can't get up at 7 and do my full like level 10 workout.
Mm-hmm.
So what's my next available window? Well, maybe at 11, I could, squeeze in a walk. Right? Or maybe at 4 o'clock, I can, get a 15-minute workout in. Or maybe at 8 o'clock, I can, go for a walk. Right? so that you have options, right?
Yeah.
It's not even about like, oh, I have to say I have to do this exact workout today. And that's it no matter what. And I think that's something where a lot of trainers get themselves in trouble because we all learn periodization and all that kind of stuff, right? And so then we think like, okay, I have to give the client this, this, and this, and this. And so now when the client doesn't do Monday's workout, where we're like, oh no, what do I do? Like, do I have them do it on Tuesday? Do we change something for Wednesday? Oh no, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Flexibility. That's what we do. Like there's a unless you are training someone who gets paid to look a certain way, we don't really need periodization the way that most trainers have been taught. Like, because
Mm.
a lot of this stuff comes from a bodybuilding world.
Mhm.
And most of our clients don't need to be bodybuilders.
Yeah.
It's okay if they have some flexibility in their programming.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and so much of the research has been done on people who are in their early 20s as far as hypertrophy and,
Yeah.
results of cardiovascular improvement. All this research oftentimes is done on this very young segment of the population, which we're not there.
Yeah. And genetically, I couldn't put on muscle easily at 20. So I'm certainly not going to put it on easily at 40. Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I love it. I love that flexible approach. I think huge theme for this episode. I'm curious as we kind of wrap up, what for you, if you had the opportunity, and you probably do, I would imagine, in doing your work as a coach, you have the opportunity to speak with someone who is back to where you were in the retail management days, eating in food courts and wanting to drop 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 pounds. What would you say to them as the best first step for them to begin the journey?
yeah. So, one of the first things I always teach people is we need to create a vision. And I I use the term somewhat reluctantly because I think a lot of times when people think about vision, they think like vision boards or they think about goals, and that's not what a vision is. A vision is really about figuring out who future you is going to be and figuring out what behaviors that person has. So, analogy I like to use is, and the people in my age range will appreciate this one. Imagine that the Doc Brown from Back to the Future comes and picks you up in the DeLorean and takes you a year into the future where you want to be, and you get to see your future self, and you get to follow your future self around all day long, right? What does that future you do from the moment they wake up to the moment they go back to bed? What if you could see inside of their mind, what thoughts go through their head, what words come out of their mouth, what foods are they eating, what kind of activities are they doing, who are they spending time with, all those things, right? Ideal situation. Now, acknowledge we may not get to that ideal situation
Mhm.
because the reality is we can't necessarily control the outcomes. But what we can do is we can look at the behaviors that it would take to become that person, and we can start to implement those.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would tell people in outside of just creating that vision for yourself and understanding the steps that you can start taking today to become that person. And obviously we already talked about don't have the all or nothing mindset about it, right? Like be realistic about where you are starting and start small. But at the end of the day, I think a big conversation, especially for us as men, that we need to have here is guys, we need to have more self compassion. We need to stop beating ourselves up when we're not meeting what we think the expectations are because so many of us are basing everything in our life off expectations that other people have of us. And that's why creating this vision is so important. And that's why I don't make it about goals and I don't make it about other stuff. You need to make it about you.
Mm.
What's important to you? What are your values? What is your identity that you want to have?
Yes.
And once you understand that and you start to create your own rules, right? Not going by other people's rules, you're not following other people's direction for your life. You start to follow your own direction. You're going to start to find happiness. And you're going to start to realize that maybe the goal that you thought was so important to you maybe that six-pack abs or whatever, you start to realize that that thing was only something that you were going after because other people told you that was gonna make you happy, but you
Mm.
now realize that you don't need it to be happy. Healthy isn't a certain look. You don't have to look like a Marvel superhero to be healthy. There's a lot of trainers I know who look absolutely fantastic that I'm sure their blood work is horrible based on their diets. They just have really great genetics. So healthy is not a look, healthy is a mindset. Healthy is about being active. It's about having great relationships. This idea that I talk about of connected health looks at your mental health, which is your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotional health, which is the way you react to both internal and external stimuli, your physical health, which is like exercise, sleep, nutrition, things like that. And stress management kind of gets thrown into the mix between those three. And then you got your relationships, you got your environment, and then that vision really is the part that's going to help you connect to that existential health. It's really about finding a purpose, connecting to something bigger than you. And so when I tell people like where do you start at, it's like look at this idea of connected health and figure out your vision for what you want each of those areas in your life to look like.
Nice. Awesome. I like to end an episode kind of outro with a takeaway, an action step. And I think we have one. So I'll recap that for everybody and invite them to sit down and work on that vision. So what is the best way for someone listening to catch up with you, follow your work, and connect?
Yeah, my website is actually gonna be the best place to reach out to me. It's unshakablehabits.com. And that has actually links to my podcast, which is called Unshakable Habits. It also has links to all my social media accounts. And there's going to be a button in the top right corner where people can book a free roadmap clarity call. And what that is really an opportunity for you to schedule a free call with me. And I will talk through where you are right now and kind of what those next steps are for you. And we can explore if I'm the right person to help you get there.
Awesome. Well, Stephen Box, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Nate.
I know you enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed it so much. So many great takeaways. I want to thank Stephen Box once again for being here on the show. Links are in the show notes for you to connect with him as well as access other resources that I have available for you. And just in parting, I want to encourage you to walk through that vision exercise. Such a powerful thing. You know, we've had guests here on the show that have taken us through similar processes before, and there's a reason for it. There is a huge reason for it because it's so valuable in this process of becoming the version of ourselves that we want to be, becoming a future you, becoming future me. So I want to invite you to sit down, if you haven't, as an action step for this week. Sit down, go back to that part of the show and do the work. Really do the work. This is going to make a difference in your journey. So please sit down for just a few minutes and do the work. Go back to that portion of the episode. Listen as he explains the exercise. Put your podcast player on pause and write out your answers to those powerful questions that he asked, which will help us to develop, design, and create a vision that's going to serve us along our way in our journey to become the healthiest versions of ourselves that we can possibly be. Thank you so much for being here with me on the Begin Within Health show. I appreciate your support so much. And by the way, if you're wondering what you can do to support the show, here's what it is. Follow the show in your podcast player. Rate and review it in your podcast player. And share with a friend, someone who's been supporting you or someone who you'd like to support in the achievement of better health, of better quality of life. Thanks again. I'll talk with you soon. Keep taking good care of yourself.